all of a sudden we are accessible to our colleagues 24/7, 365. You can be collaborated with and not even know it. So my message today is really very simple. If you want to collaborate better, start collaborating less on what matters most. To collaborate better, collaborate less on what matters most. That's the kernel of my message. And if you take nothing else away from what I have to say in the next 30 minutes, that would be it. Now let me tell you about how we got there. This didn't just come out of the blue. This isn't because I read a couple of good books. This comes after years of thinking about, working on, and consulting around collaboration. I used the 4 stages in my team practice at Mars. It was my go-to. But something wasn't right. Now, after a couple of years of doing this, I became the team's guru at Mars. Now, you never want to be a guru because people expect you to be able to come in and solve their problems and levitate at the same time. And just wasn't going to happen. But, you live with what they give you. I want to tell you a story about one team I worked with that really started to break this down for me, though. I was working Mars. So Mars is a privately held company. It's about a $40 billion family-owned company in the 5th generation of ownership. And Mars has always fancied itself high on collaboration. Mars was in an open office environment in the 1930s before the open office was even a thing. Mars is a super egalitarian culture. There are no corner offices. In fact, the CEO of Mars sits at a desk in the middle of the room. And until about 3 years ago, every Mars associate punched a time clock, including the global CEO. So they loved collaboration, and they thought of themselves as highly collaborative. So I'm working with one of the smaller businesses. Mars has a horse care business. Who knew that? Anybody? Based in Dalton, Ohio, north central Ohio, in the middle of nowhere. And I was working with their 6-person leadership team, and I did with that team what I do with all teams. Because I'm a consultant, I gather data. So I interviewed the 6 team members. I gave them each a survey, had them fill it out. I took all that information. I summarized it. I anonymized it. I stripped out all the names. And I showed up in Dalton, Ohio at the Holiday Inn there in a little meeting room, and I started the workshop with them, and I handed out their anonymized data, and I said, okay, gang, imagine this isn't your data. Imagine it's some other team. I want you to read this and think about where this team is. Where are they in the 4 stages? And so I sent them off, and they came back, and one of the groups of 3 said, we're definitely stage 1. And the other group of 3 said, oh no, we're definitely stage 3. So we had some good debate back and forth, and finally they agreed to compromise and say, no, we're actually in the storming stage, stage 2. And it was at that point that one of the team members said, hang on. He said, something's not right here. You're like the 3rd or 4th team consultant to come in here and use this 4 stages with us. And every blessed time we come out at stage 2. So either your model's broken or you don't know what you're talking about. Caught me up short. And I thought, there is something wrong here. Because as I reflected on the many teams I'd worked with up to that point, almost all of them were at stage 1 or stage 2. We're using this model. At one point, Mars spent $7.5 million over 18 months with that firm on using this model. That's $400,000 a month. Doing something that I had direct evidence didn't really make any difference. So, at this point, I'm feeling less like a guru and more like this guy. I'm selling team snake oil. But so are a lot of other people. So are a lot of other people. And it was at this point, interestingly, just when I'm at my point of greatest doubt, that the Mars University, the executive development group at Mars says, will you develop a module for our leader development program on team effectiveness? I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? I was committed to this because I believe in the power of collaboration. But I want you to think for a moment about walking into the office at any large corporation. And you walk in and you see posters like this on the wall, right? Walk around the office, you'll see framed quotes about teamwork from famous coaches like Lou Holtz. You'll notice on people's desks little wooden blocks with their Myers-Briggs types carved into them. You guys familiar with that? Hang around long enough and you'll notice something else. That most of the actual work is getting done by individuals. They may be organized into groups, but individuals are doing the work. And if you hang around a little longer, you will begin to sense the cynicism that starts to develop around this kind of stuff. Around doing the haka, around going out and doing a ropes course, and all the kinds of team building that we're accustomed to seeing that's done with the best intention, but with weak outcomes. And it's a shame because the power and potential of collaboration is huge. And I'm confronted with developing this manager development program for the upper echelons of the company, and I'm having a crisis of confidence. I don't know what I'm going to do. And that colleague of mine was a lifesaver. She said, go back to your data. You've worked with 120 plus teams at this point. What did all those interviews teach you? What did those surveys teach you? So I sequestered myself in my home office. It was the summer of, I think, 2010. And I started, now I'm going to, look, I work from home a lot. And I'm going to be very honest, there are times when I never get out of my robe. And this, from the beginning of this process, this was one of those. I was padding around my office, kind of frustrated and worried because of what I've just described. Scratching my head thinking about, why is this so hard? Isn't collaboration innate? And that's when I thought about this. I thought about ancient hunters. Haven't we been collaborating since the dawn of time? And I went to Google Images and I said, I want to see some cave pictures. I want to create a little talisman for myself to remind myself that this is really something we know how to do. And so I grabbed this along with others and I printed it out and put it on my desk. And the more I stared at it, the more a different story began to emerge. So first of all, look at this picture. That activity right there, that is not safe. Right? I mean, that is risky, right? So these people are willing to collaborate even though it's dangerous. Now, by the way, this picture is bigger than this, and there's some people off to the back side of this with sticks chasing. It is apparently a well-understood method for hunting back then, right? So one, it's really not safe. Two, you tell me, why is it worth it? What are they getting out of this? Shout it out for me. They're getting food. What else? Clothing. Hides. Huh? They get some status. They get some wounds if they're not very lucky. Yes, that's going to happen. But they also get sinews for thread. They get antlers to make ornaments and needles out of. It's a wealth that the deliverables here are huge. So they have a very clear why. We've talked a lot about why today. Really clear why, yeah? They also have a very clear set of what's. All that stuff you guys just listed. And they even have mapped out how. This is essentially a process chart. And they've got roles clarified. They're doing all the things we want to do at work, and they're doing it without having to do their Myers-Briggs. Well, maybe they did. I don't know. I wasn't there, but could have been. But they had something going on, and it wasn't just because they got to know each other. There was more at stake for this collaboration.
Simply irresistible. Simply irresistible.
Their collaboration felt utterly irresistible to them. You saw what I did there, right? It's good. Utterly irresistible. And they didn't have to make extraordinary efforts to do that. So let's think about then, what is it then that really drives collaboration? First of all, you have to collaborate on what matters most. Decide your big why. Then you'll start collaborating less when you focus your collaboration where it's going to make the biggest difference and get specific about it. And that's what's going to end up creating more valuable and better collaboration. You have to practice it. You have to do the work. But when you do, the payoff is huge. So what's the takeaway here? A couple of things. One, I was lucky enough to have an article published in HBR back in October, the headline of which was, "Stop wasting money on team building." Now, I'm not saying don't have fun. Go have a good time. Take people out. Have some beers together. Do some fun stuff. But don't pretend it's going to change collaborative quality or outcomes. It won't. Two, hire differently. If you really want collaboration and you want to get people in to do it, you got to do what Menlo Innovations is doing. They're in Ann Arbor, right? It takes them 2 months, they've told me, to hire. Why? Because they want people who will collaborate. And they put them through the ringer, they get them working, and then after a couple of 4 to 8 weeks, they'll tell them. Or you can do what Mars did. If you want to hire a lot of good individuals, great, but then you got to account for that in how you use them, how you work with them, and how you guide collaboration for them. Think about how you hire. And finally, this. Now, you may be familiar with the work of Brené Brown, who talks about wholeheartedness in work and courage at work. I got into this work because, to me, work has to be a place where you can be fully yourself, where you can be authentic, and you can grow into a person who's going to make a difference in the world and who will be satisfied with who they are. This methodology, as simple as it is, enables people to talk about what matters to them and to focus their work where it's going to be meaningful for them. Work ought to be a place of wholeheartedness. And this is just another way to get there. To get irresistible collaboration, collaborate less by collaborating on what matters most. Do that and you'll start thinking differently about collaboration. You'll start doing collaboration differently, and you'll start contributing to your organizations in more powerful and effective ways. Thank you very much.